Hi everyone, my name is Lily Nussbaum, and the book that I'm going to be presenting on is Burnout: The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. And this book was written by sisters Amelia and Emily Nagoski. So, just as an overview for the book, it kind of goes through the idea of burnout and why people of all genders experience it. And it's something that a lot of people can identify with, just the feeling of not being able to continue anymore. And you just feel like you've put in all your effort. And so it explores how stress affects women and offers science-backed strategies for managing it. It also explains why women handle stress and experience burnout in a different way than men do. It explains the idea that burnout is caused by unfinished stress cycles, not just external pressures like work, family, and society. It explains that stress is a biological process that needs to be completed to prevent exhaustion. And it goes into explaining that activities help signal to the body that it is safe to relax. These activities include laughter, and exercising. And it explains an important concept that is a central part to the book, which is the bikini industrial complex. And they explain it as a multi-billion-dollar industry that pressures women to constantly improve their appearance, reinforcing these unrealistic societal beauty standards that add to the stress of women just having to defend their bodies or women just feeling uncomfortable in their bodies, which adds to the stress and pressure that's put on women. And then it goes into another important concept called the human giver syndrome, which is something that I'm going to go into more deeply in my takeaway section. But one of its main conclusions is that breaking free from harmful societal expectations allows women to reclaim their energy, health, and happiness. So now to go into my key takeaways, I identified three of them. So the first one is the importance of completing the stress cycle. Stress isn't just in your mind, it's a physical response that must be completed to prevent burnout. I think this is an important concept because most people can kind of confuse the two and think that once you get stressed, you should sort of give up. But I think that they really do a good job of explaining why you need to go through it and be able to work through it rather than just letting yourself burn out. And like I had said before, movements such as exercise and stretching, deep breathing, laughter, and social connection help release stress from the body. And so this second takeaway is something that I had mentioned briefly before, which is rejecting the human giver syndrome. And they explain this as the idea that women are often expected to prioritize other people's needs over their own, which leads to exhaustion. So they go through this idea of rejecting it by setting boundaries, practicing self-compassion, and recognizing burnout as a systemic issue, not a personal failing. And those are the keys to well-being for women. And the third takeaway that I identified is that rest is non-negotiable. Rest is more than just sleep. It includes joy, play, and deep social connections. True recovery happens when we embrace activities that nourish us emotionally and physically, not just productivity driven breaks. And an important quote that was another big takeaway from mine from the book is that wellness is not a state of being, it is a state of action. It is the freedom to move through the innate cycles and oscillations of being human. This quote emphasizes that managing stress and avoiding burnout is an ongoing process, not a one-time achievement. And I think that this is really important just to the overall theme of the book and being able to identify the ways to avoid burnout and explaining why this is not something that people should be afraid of and something that's like human and something that you have to move through to be able to be productive. So now for connection to class. It's challenging gendered expectations in business. The book introduces the human giver syndrome, like I said, where women are expected to serve others at their own expense. I feel like a lot of this has to do with just the discussions in class of people saying um, things like not being able to put their own ideas forward or just helping others before maybe really like being able to show themselves as someone who can take on a leadership role. And it's a barrier that women face in the workplace and is also related to many of the factoids that get brought up in class within the scope of female leadership and personal value. I think is also something that goes into the bikini industrial complex, like I talked about earlier, which is just women not not being feeling like they have to compete or live up to a standard that's set. And I feel like a lot of this just goes within the theme of class, which is just this pressure that can be on women and societal expectations, but also being able to break through those gender roles within society. So thank you so much for listening to my presentation.